Couldn't decide on a title for the series. SENCO 101? SENCO Survival? No. Being a successful SENCO? No. I eventually decided on the SENsible SENCO. One who manages whatever is thrown at them effectively, whilst acknowledging that sometimes it's like fighting a bushfire on one side and a tsunami on the other. I'm Abigail, and I've been a SENCO for over 20 years. I currently work as a consultant SENCO for a software company, write books, chair the governing body of 3 schools, run my own SEN consultancy business, and I'm mum to 4 boys, the youngest of which is 2. I have a very dry sense of humour, and I'm very much an open book. I write and I speak the same way, and there's no airs, graces or gloss over what I'm going to say. So, you got a role as a SENCO. Congratulations. If you've been in the role for a while, well done. Keep sticking it out and feel free to contribute to this series. You might want to skip this video and join me a bit later on. If this is your first foray, then hi and welcome to a whole new world. I like to think that there are groups of SENCOs in the education system. Now is the time to engage your sense of humour. First, there are the fossilised SENCOs. Those who, like me, have been around forever and may or may not have moved on with the times. Most of us were not required to do the NASENCO award, although some chose to do it while it was still fully funded by the DFE. Then we have the named SENCOs, those who are named for the sake of fulfilling certain criteria. Usually they need to be a qualified teacher, but they don't actually do the role, and they often leave that to someone who is perhaps not allowed to be named as the SENCO, for example a TA. Sometimes they will undertake the NASENCO award, but usually the name gets passed on to another member of the team before the 3 years are up. Next are the career SENCOs. They're usually members of an extended leadership team who have had to take on an additional responsibility in order to move up the ladder. They may or may not embark on the NASENCO award, and they may or may not have any intention of staying in the role once they've actually done that. These are closely followed by the foisted SENCOs, those who've been given the job but are not really sure why and are now in a very bewildering world full of acronyms. Then we have designated SENCOs, those who have chosen the route and will do their best for everyone, and they are willing to learn and really be the best they can be. And finally, we have the baby SENCOs, those who are not required to undertake the NASENCO but have actually chosen to do so in order to become a designated SENCO, to take on an assistant role, or because they believe it will improve their work with children who have special educational needs. In here, I include those who work in private education, further education and nursery schools. Of course, this is all a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it serves to show that the role of the SENCO could actually be assigned to anyone from a TA, even though it shouldn't be, right the way through and up to a head teacher via those who've been teaching for 1 year or those who are ready to retire. Hence, whilst the NASENCO award, for those of you lucky enough to embark on it, is going to give you some information about being a SENCO, it isn't going to tell you how to do the day job. You have taken on a role that is going to put you on the most exciting rollercoaster journey you've had. There will be highs and lows, and lots of it will feel like that hard slog of dragging yourself up the incline. I often find myself comparing qualifications and awards to everyday life and wondering where on earth education has gone wrong. Take, for example, a first aid course. If I asked if you had ever been shown how to clean a graze, apply a plaster, or hold a sick bucket, the answer would probably be never. If I ask if you were taught how to do CPR, manage a severe burn or a broken leg, then the answer is likely to be every time. Yet, which accidents do we actually encounter more frequently? The same applies to safeguarding training. We sit and consider serious case reviews. Cases of such severe neglect, we raise our eyebrows and seriously contemplate human nature. Yet the everyday things we deal with, like grubby uniform, head lice, mum and dad falling out but not quite domestic violence, they're rarely dealt with in enough detail for us to take something practical back to the workplace and actually apply it. I could have the same argument about GCSE English or even Key Stage 2 literacy. Beyond gaining a qualification, I don't actually read a book and think, I wonder why the author used the word diligent, or actually consider what they could have used instead. Nor do I usually look at a piece of writing and admire its use of a fronted adverbial. The NASENCO award isn't very much different. If I want to discover how rusty my essay writing technique is, the history of SEN, and how to undertake evidence-based investigations, which, let's face it, beyond getting the qualification we just do not have the time for, it's not really applicable to our role as a SENCO on a day-to-day basis. I know why. It's because every school is different. What I did in my primary school is very different to what I did in the secondary school, and what I did there was very different to what I did in the FE Institute, and what I did across both my middle schools was very different between the two of them. But I do think there are some common themes that could be covered within the award to make it a little bit more usable. Then again, if the NASENCO did that, I'd have no content for my videos and every SENCO would know exactly what they're doing. Just as teacher training never actually prepared us for teaching, the NASENCO does not prepare you for being a SENCO. Skip ahead if you know this bit, but for those of you who've stumbled upon the role, this is probably quite important, especially if my last couple of slides have you totally confused. The NASENCO, National Award in Special Educational Needs Coordination, is a statutory qualification that a SENCO must achieve within 3 years of being named as the SENCO. You cannot be named as a SENCO unless you are a qualified teacher. The NASENCO award is offered by many universities and agencies with options of online only, face-to-face or blended learning. It usually takes 12 months to complete the work required, but if you opt for an online module, you could possibly complete it quicker, if you've got the time. Some SENCOs find themselves waiting until they're 6 months into their role before embarking on it, and this lets them have time to get to grips with their school. Quite a few SENCOs find themselves asking for extensions, and 18 months to complete the award is not uncommon. With this in mind, don't leave it until your 3rd year to apply. Don't underestimate this award. It is a level 7 qualification, that's master's level, so you're not going to get away with a half dozen multiple guess questionnaires. The workload does vary by establishment, and whilst some require several 3,000 to 5,000 word essays, others might ask for many more shorter ones. Some will also ask for a portfolio of work against a series of competences. Choose the qualification provider that works with your style of working. Whilst your employer may offer to pay for the qualification, make sure you have enough time allocated to complete the work. I often read comments from individuals who've spent 8 to 10 hours a week on top of their full teaching timetable simply reading materials for the course, and then they spend all of every school break and holiday writing essays and assignments. For me, I'd choose Real Training. I'm not being sponsored. It's online and that suits my mode of working. I've used them before and I know how they work, and they offer a combination of ways to submit things. However, if you're completely new to the SENCO role and to the local authority that you're working in, you might prefer a local face-to-face provider, as this would let you network with others from your area. It's also important to note that none of the providers let you undertake the qualification if you're not employed by a school. So it's not an option whilst you're on supply or cover work. I have been corrected by this once before by a lecturer who said, no, that's not true. And so I tried to apply to their university and I was rejected because I wasn't employed by a school. I think she was a little confused. If you are on maternity leave, then yes, you can, because you're still employed at that point in time. Okay, essential reading then. There is actually only one document that you need to read to do your job. Unfortunately, it's written in legal jargon, isn't particularly accessible, and really doesn't translate easily into day-to-day practice. It's called the CAFA, or Children's and Families Act 2014, specifically Part 3, Sections 19 to 83, and I'll pop a link in the description box below. This is the latest piece of law which underpins the changes to the SEN system. We have a layman's interpretation of the CAFA, which is called the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Code of Practice 0 to 25 years, version 2015 January. And again, the link is below. If you don't want to print off 200 odd pages of PDF document, I do sell a version that looks like this on Amazon, and the link is also down below for that. This was released in January 2015 and is apparently up for update next year, and it translates the CAFA into something a little bit more simple, but it is still open to interpretation. These, alongside your own SEN policy, are the only documents you must read and try to understand. Of course, there's plenty of books out there that will help you with your role. I think I own most of them. I have Natalie Packer's Perfect SENCO, and I'm sorry, Natalie, I cringe every time I read that title. Tarita Kemeneus' Handbook for SENCOs, or more specific guides like Glenys Hannell's Identifying Special Educational Needs, or Bob Bates's Quick Guide to Special Needs and Disabilities, or even my own contributions. The SENDCO, Approach It, Map It, Manage It for provision management, Dyscalculia and Dysgraphia. I'm sorry, that's a shameless plug there, but I've got to pay the mortgage somehow. Links to all books below. However, none of them are actually essential to successfully engaging with the role, and a good Google search will often find you the answers for free. Here's a really quick view of some of my collection. If you don't want to watch it, skip ahead 2 minutes. The amazing 5-point scale. Provision mapping in the SEND Code of Practice. There's a primary version of this book as well. This is my Bible. I'm on my second copy. Over the coming months, I aim to release a video every couple of weeks to address various SENCO issues. Of course, that's all dependent on what else appears in my inbox, but the first 5 videos on this list here have already been released in one go, so you can choose the one that is most relevant to your situation. You should only need one of them. The others are listed in no particular order, so if you have any burning desires for a video on funding or access arrangements, then let me know. I'm happy to take suggestions for additional videos, but on my list currently I have, and I envisage the Knowing the Needs series to be more than one video focusing on different needs and how we can best meet those in our schools. And wherever possible, I will support my videos with additional resources that you can download or access. And of course, they'll be on my website as well. Another 12 suggestions on this page. More on this page. And I didn't put the other 8 slides in with all of the others because I thought you'd get bored watching it. Thank you if you managed to make it to the end. If you'd like more information or just fancy listening to my dulcet tones again, then just click like and subscribe. At 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a prize draw for a printed bound copy of the SENCO to practice. It is probably the most important document in our role, so why not give away something that's really, really useful to everyone? Thanks very much for listening.